Board and Zoning Commission. Mr. Twiggy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Here.
Mr. Scrubby Tennis,
Here.
Mr. Khan,
Here.
Mr. McPartlin,
Here.
Mr. DiArpino,
Here.
Mr. Oster,
Here.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. I'd like to make one announcement before we get on to the minutes. We received a revised sketch plan for 1380 Van Antwerp Road this afternoon, and that was sent out to all the board members via email this afternoon. So we haven't had a chance to really engage our opinions on that sketch plan, and it's also not consistent with what the CAC has seen in their recommendations. So we will be pulling that resolution from the agenda tonight. We may have some discussion under this item number 8, discussion items later on, but we'll be pulling that resolution. Okay, just want everybody to know that. All right, so we have the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2019 meeting that were included in your packet. Does anyone have any? Well, let's make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. McPartlin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Oster. Any questions, comments, or changes to the minutes? Anyone? No? Okay, seeing no changes to the minutes, all those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, we'll approve the minutes unanimously. And we'll move on. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll go right to privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we'll listen to what you have to say. So privilege of the floor is open.
Lorene Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. I'm here to, even though I feel that the resolution on the Van Antwerp Road has been postponed or removed for tonight. After reading about it in the paper, I was really quite discouraged that taking that prestigious area and corner with that home is such a, it is part of what Niskayuna stands for. Unfortunately, sometimes destroying something old to make something new doesn't always work out. I am referring to the home on Whitney, there was one home there on Whitney and Pierce. And this particular builder or investor, I'm not quite sure what he is, but he took the 1 acre lot and made two lots out of it, which was very nice. The house was run down, but it seemed to me in my history here that we're never supposed to clear cut the lot to be built except for the foundation of the house. Now that acre that faces Pierce was bought by the same developer who was trying to build 3 lots out of I don't know what. And I don't think we policed the fact that acres, it was clear cutted of everything. Now, I don't know who makes that decision, but I believe our chairman knows that in our building regulations that we never clear cutted a whole lot. And as a matter of fact, on Stuyvesant, and I was not involved in that, but I was here, they made the person who cut all those trees down to plant the trees again, except where the foundation of the house is. And now, I would like Laura or Ms. Robertson to research that. Now, I don't know where you all were or where the building department was when the 2 lots on Whitney that were developed from 1 lot, I can't remember the name of the home, Griswold, does that sound familiar? Well, anyway, what I'm afraid of is that we are taking the lots, the acreage of that home that is a historic home, one of the oldest homes. And we have a historian now who is very interested in maintaining the structure and historic value of Niskayuna. I know that I don't live in Van Antwerp. It doesn't make any difference where I live. I live in Niskayuna. And what happens in Niskayuna happens to everybody who lives here. As a matter of fact, years ago, there was a letter written about, we are all neighbors. I don't care if you live on Rosendale or Avon Crest or where you live. We're neighbors. We all share the same things about this town. And I do want you to know, recently, I have spent half of my life living here. So that makes me quite old. But the point is that if we don't maintain the structure, and if we continue to allow variances to make something that shouldn't be there, then we're doing something wrong with this town. Now, I know it seems that I'm always complaining about something, but here we have a beautiful home that has a historical interest. And however, our planner has decided that 3 lots are too much and taking down some structures there. I hope that you are very serious about considering this reapplication. I don't know what it is, and I don't know whether it will be presented tonight, but it only means that we're delaying a vote. And from past experiences, I do feel that the planning board seems to be a little reluctant to deny things. And that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that you take a little more consideration as to what we're doing with the basic premise of what our town is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Lee Moore. I live at 1359 Lexington Avenue in Schenectady. I am not currently a Niskayuna resident, but I was a Niskayuna resident. May I approach you, please?
Sure.
I grew up at 1380 Van Antwerp Road. My father was a doctor. He had his practice in that building. Our family grew in that building. They had that home when I was born, and I lived there until I was 20 years old. I had the incredible privilege of enjoying everything about that house. The history, the park-like setting, and grew up with a wealth of friends in the neighborhood who also had the privilege of enjoying that property. We would have 20 to 30 kids roller skating through the driveway, playing hide and go seek until 10 o'clock at night. We would play badminton, volleyball, football, baseball. It was an amazing time to be growing up, but it was also an amazing time where everyone, not just I, had the opportunity to enjoy that setting. When Mrs. Pear sold the house to my parents, it was with the understanding that nothing would change. When my father retired and sold the house, it was with the understanding that nothing would change. When the past owner sold the house to the recent owner, it was with her understanding that nothing would change, and unfortunately, that's not what happened. And nothing has broken my heart more than seeing that property decimated. I feel very strongly, if you don't feel you can care for that property as it is, you have no business buying it. And I think it would be a terrible, terrible loss to Niskayuna, as well as to Schenectady County, to have that land further destroyed. It is beautiful. I have shared it with my family, and they've heard stories of it. I know everyone who lives in that area that I still keep in contact with has been very saddened by what has happened, and nobody that I know or can imagine wants to see it continued to be cut up and sold because somebody wants to make a profit off of that. I certainly hope you will take my concerns under consideration. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you very much.
By the way, that picture was taken in the early 60s.
Rebecca Holmes, 1379 Van Antwerp. First, I'd like to thank the board for your attendance at these meetings. And I'd also like to thank the people of the community who have given up time with their families to come and speak at so many of these Monday night meetings. It is an indication as to how strongly the community feels about the potential loss of character and the additive impacts of the segmented serial subdivisions. I believe to this point that there's general consensus that this property is historic. With what I have reported, what Ms. Robertson has reported, what the town historian has reported, I believe there are sufficient grounds for this consensus. Also, our town code offers many concrete reasons to deny any further development on this property. Mr. Hess and others have offered many specific code references which apply to this project. In order for our town codes to be effective and relevant for the future, they must be enforced today. Josh Hawley, our town's senior civil engineer, has stated that the entire contiguous 6-lot subdivision, I understand there's been revisions today, I can't speak to any changes. Anyways, anything more than a 4-lot subdivision would classify as a major subdivision. And Josh Hawley has requested that the DEC look at that for stormwater impact, because as I've discussed before, impact is additive. There was clearly more than an acre disturbed with the first 3 houses. There are reported impacts in the neighborhood because of it, and there will be more impact if any more building is done on that property. And the story is more complex than a simple drainage study, which looks at permeable versus impermeable surfaces. The story is also about the loss of foliage, which absorbs huge amount of stormwater through canopies of leaves, flowers, and roots. The effect of a moderate rainfall on a fully leafed old growth tree is 0. No rain gardens required. The Conservation Advisory Council has unanimously recommended a positive declaration, which is a very rare event. Some of you may be aware that I served on the CAC for 8 years. In those 8 years, I think we recommended maybe 2 or 3 positive declarations. We knew that although every loss of every speck of green space is impactful, we needed to reserve our positive declarations for the most egregious projects going on in this community so that our work as a council would be impactful. That recommendation for positive declaration was a big deal. The CAC also expressed a concern about the precedent that would be set should this project be allowed, and they were exactly right. Any of the other large historic properties along Van Antwerp, Rosendale Road, St. David's Lane, etc., would be more likely to fall victim to clear-cutting, loss of historical integrity, and loss of character, because the precedent would be set with this project. The applicant's attorney sent a letter to the town. We need to clarify this. It's referring to the lot where I currently live as, quote, substandard. I'm not sure why this statement is being made, but it is absolutely irrelevant to this application. The lot where I live right now was not recently subdivided. It probably existed before zoning laws existed. I saw this picture in the Gazette of the carriage house. We probably all saw it. And my knee-jerk reaction was, wow, is that the ugliest picture of that carriage house? It's so much more attractive than that. And it hit me. The carriage house photographed here was photographed out of context, with almost no trees, no perennials, no blooming forsythia, no kids playing street tennis on the driveway, not even a green lawn. I hope everybody saw the forsythia bloom last week, by the way. It was a very good year. Anyways, I realized that what makes this special is looking at it every day as a small part of the larger parcel, with the main house and with the foliage framing the picture. It's not just about the carriage house. It's about the property as a whole. And that distinctive combination of historic structures and a historic environment is what creates character. Historic resources are finite and can't be replaced, making them precious commodities. There is huge public opposition to this project. Really, any further development on this project. Use the laws that you have and set the right precedent. Don't make the drainage problems at Mr. Bray's house worse. Don't be fooled by a bunch of promises that can't be kept. The best outcome going forward for that property is to maintain what we already decided in 2017. Keep the main parcel as it is, as it has been for nearly 200 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daryl Bray, 1420 Van Antwerp Road. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and a lot of people have spoken very well about the 1380 project and why it's not a great idea. And for one, it goes back to, I think, and it was very interesting when she said context of the project and what the house is, really struck a chord for me, because it comes down to the character of the neighborhood. And the damage has been done, quite a bit of damage has been done already, in my opinion, with the previous subdivision and the way they chose to clear cut those lots, take down every single tree. And you can now look straight through from McGovern all the way to Hilltop with no impediment at all. And you look at the houses individually. I think it was a couple months ago, I said, you look at the houses, you look at the development based on the master plan, but then you got to look at the master plan and see how it fits in with the houses. And I think what I mean by that is that each house individually is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you look at the context of where you're putting these houses and taking those trees down, and you look at that corner as a whole, it doesn't fit. What's there now doesn't fit. And by wedging in one or two more houses on that corner, it's going to make it even worse. It does not belong there. Whether it's segmentation or serial subdivision or whatever you want to call it, beyond that being wrong in itself, it just doesn't fit with what's there. And we have a history of this developer taking trees down all over the place, whether they're have been okay to do it or not. And if a tree is in the way, there seems to be no choice whether or not to take the tree down or to find a way to save it. At least that's what we've seen. And, did that property get subdivided previously with the understanding that that property would stay together with the carriage house and that whole corner? Yes, it did. And did the developer do their due diligence when they purchased that property? Did they try to deceive? Can you ask somebody if you thought about subdividing a property, if you're going to not even tell them who you are? In whose fault is that? It's not your fault. I know that you guys in the previous subdivision questioned the subdivision as it was. Then to now do it further, it's simply wrong. And we shouldn't allow it to happen because it doesn't fit with the neighborhood and within the context of what we want this community to be. It's just completely wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Bakner. I'm a land use attorney with Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna. I've had the privilege of being in front of this board many times for many projects. Many of those projects are really critical projects in the town of Niskayuna, including the reconstruction of Mohawk Mall into Consumer Square, Also, the construction of the Walmart and the other facilities up there alongside Mohawk Mall. And for all of that development, for all of that square footage, for all of those subdivisions, not one of those projects was considered to be a type 1 action that would require an environmental impact statement. So when I hear people come up and say, well, I think a 2-lot subdivision, because there is 1 lot there already, so there will be 3, 2 lots, and the remainder lot deserves an environmental impact statement, I question whether any of that makes any kind of remote sense, given the law and the way the law is set forth in seeker. Also, given the fact that your own seeker regulations provide, in fact, that minor subdivisions are to be a type 2 action, which requires no seeker attention whatsoever. It's considered to be exempt. When you look at the state regulations, it's clearly an unlisted action. And the age of the building, which is clearly over 50 years old, does not give rise to requiring it to be considered a type 1 action. In fact, you have to have many more houses, many more lots, somewhere on the order of 25 lots, in order for this to go from unlisted to a type 1 action. So just strictly from a legal standpoint, the assertion that environmental impact statements should be required for this project is not well-founded in the town of Niskayuna past practice, nor in your law, nor in the state law, nor in fact have there been any cases which we've been able to find in which such an EIS was required for a 2-lot subdivision. So let's talk about community character. So community character. We sent in with my letter to the board a number of drone pictures showing the complete setting of this property and where it's located. Putting aside the newest houses built there, every one of the houses, including the house across the street, were built after this house was built. So what we have in the town of Niskayuna is, over time, people build houses. In some cases, people build multifamily houses, which are within the viewshed of historic properties, such as this property. And in some cases, they build retail, such as the drugstore, which is also in the viewshed of this property. The property itself, Elena Lisi, lives in the historic property. She lives there. That's going to be her residence. It's going to be preserved. We heard the concerns relative to the carriage house, although I will tell you it has very little historic integrity in its current form. It's been added on to substantially. And the way that the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation looks at that, by virtue of the fact that it's been added to, the historic context or historic nature of the carriage house is really called into question. But regardless, to satisfy the concerns of the town, the new plan shows, as I had said in my letter, which came in weeks ago, that we are willing to move the garages, the entire thing, both the carriage house and the 4 bays, I think it is, that are added on to the carriage house. And we'll be happy to reuse those at Elena's house. So, and virtually all that's shown on the new plan is the relocation of that. And of course, any attention to drainage that's occasioned by that. The plan that was put together by Luigi, and I won't attempt to address stormwater because I am not a professional engineer, but it shows the rain garden and it shows how stormwater will be addressed post-construction, as well as during the course of construction with soil erosion and sedimentation control. So the last thing I would like to say is I'm going to be here tonight to answer any question that the board has that I can answer when you're discussing this as a matter. But I would draw your attention to my letter. Planning boards are not given unfettered discretion to make decisions. They are bound by precedent. They are bound by what the law says they can and cannot do. And the subdivision authority in the town of Niskayuna is quite frankly more limited than most in terms of the criteria that are set forth in the beginning of the code. The definition of a minor subdivision is very clear. You can elect to require people to go through procedures that are associated with the major subdivision, but it does not change the definition of what a minor subdivision is. And I would just like to say that any of the preceding owners who owned this property could have at any time put a deed restriction on this property to prevent its further development. That was never done. Talk is cheap. You can say you want to preserve something, but generally when people want to sell something, they want to sell it for top dollar. And that's generally what happens in every community. Niskayuna, Glenville, Duanesburg, where I live, people want to sell their property for the maximum amount of money. They invest a lot in it. Elena has invested a lot in this property. She is a resident of the town of Niskayuna. She plans on preserving the house. She plans on relocating the garages, and the carriage house. In addition to this, there was site visits as well as discussions regarding maintaining a number of the very large trees on the property. We recognize that the desire is for those trees to be preserved, and I believe that the plan that Luigi from ABD has put together shows that those trees will be preserved and how they can be preserved as part of the grading and excavation for the property. One of the reasons why trees get cut down is because you need to direct stormwater, meet the stormwater requirements. It's not always possible not to grade the property in a way that has an adverse effect on trees. However, these apparently are all at the edge of the property along the town right-of-way, so it should be possible to preserve those. So we will work with you on this, but I think it is important to look at the context in which the house is and its no longer existent historic character. There's apartment houses across the way. There's a new house across the way. There's 3 new houses next to it. And every house that's on Hilltop was built after this house was built. I understand people don't like change, but not liking change and public opposition are neither factors that can be considered by a planning board in its review. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open.
Tim Sarantonio, 2509 Antonia Drive. Really happy that we just heard from the opposition side in terms of Van Antwerp, because it helped clarify for me, what's the real point of this. And for me, it comes down to history in many different ways. What I just heard was, for all intents and purposes, deal with it. Just deal with it. And that's not something that I think should be the ultimate goal of the planning board. The planning board should be seeing things in the broad context of where we want to be as a community moving forward. And for me, that's not just unfettered development. I don't know if you folks saw, I don't watch The Simpsons, but last night we were part of an upstate New York joke that basically made fun of us. Niskayuna. And that's not what I want to be known for, as a joke. And the reality is that the things that I want to be known for are real historic character. I moved here from Chicago a few years ago, and one of the things that struck me was coming into the neighborhood and seeing that house and the carriage building. Not just the house, but the carriage building itself and the broader context of what that represented. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a person who understands fully all the impacts of environmental study, but I am a historian. And the other aspect that I understand is historically, what I have seen with this developer is that they destroy things well beyond what they say they will do. The back of my house is a great example of that. But furthermore, I do not have confidence that this developer will take any care moving anything in a way that will respect the historical integrity of that carriage house whatsoever. And I don't think that it's right to basically have you told, change is coming, winter is coming, deal with it. I'm trying to drop as many pop culture references here as possible. But the reality is that it comes down to, who do we want to be? Do we want to be a community that is just cookie cutter and full of a bunch of houses that have no true character of what it used to be years ago, 60s beyond? Or do we want to be a community that loves its history, embraces the master plan and other elements of the code that have been explicitly cited by our attorney, of reasons why this subdivision should not be further developed? And those are the things that I think actually matter here, not a bunch of dancing when it comes to the legal elements around what this actually will be. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca Holmes, 1379 Van Antwerp Road. A couple of clarifications. First of all, from that house, from the carriage house, you can see no retail facilities. Those aerial photographs were taken, like I said, from aerial, way up in the air. From way up in the air, sure, you can see St. James, the former St. James Square, current ShopRite Plaza. But from that house, you cannot see ShopRite Plaza. Also, the issue of integrity of the carriage house was brought up in regards to the State Historic Preservation Office. I see nothing in that about additions. The State Historic Preservation Office has offered integrity, and this is a specific quote, integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association, end quote. If the carriage house is relocated, maybe it can survive the move and maybe it can't, but it will most certainly suffer a loss of integrity. Integrity is an important virtue, not only for people, but also for historic structures on historic foundations, built of historic materials with historic workmanship and historic settings filled with historic trees and foliage with historic feelings and associations. Just wanted to clarify a couple of those points. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Before I close, privilege of the floor.
My name is Ryan Cox, and I live at 2463 Hilltop Road. I'm one of the new houses in the neighborhood. I was the first subdivision to come of the sale of 1380 Van Antwerp. And I just wanted to say, outside of the legal and environmental science impact, that, what I've observed in my short time on Hilltop is that a lot of the times what we see is that people use Hilltop as a cut through to get back into the neighborhood. And I believe that with two more houses on Hilltop, that might mitigate some of the fast driving that comes through on Hilltop. As I plan to raise a family there as I get older, just like the lady who grew up there back in the 60s and 70s, who played in the street. I would like my children to play in the street as well. And I'm concerned that, without any further development, that might not be possible. So, I just wanted to offer maybe an unpopular opinion on the matter, but I'm concerned too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call for privilege of the floor. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close privilege of the floor. Thank you for your comments. We really do appreciate it. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move right into new business, and we'll go right to resolution number 2. Resolution number 2 is resolution 2019-10, a resolution for a site plan approval of a gas station signage at 1502 Balltown Road. Mr. Twitty?
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on an application for a site plan review. Whereas Lizzie Holloway of Station Glow LLC has made an application to the planning board for signage improvements to the mobile gas station at 1502 Balltown Road that include replacing the existing gas price signage with segmentable LED lights and synergy blade signs. And whereas the zoning classification of this property is CN Neighborhood Commercial, and whereas the location and square footage of the site's existing monument sign received an area variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 16, 1995, and whereas Section 220-13, Schedule ID, Column 7, states that for a gasoline service station, one sign not exceeding 6 square feet in area for advertisement of sales, promotional material shall be allowed. And whereas the applicant has proposed a placement of 5 4.07 square foot promotional signs as shown on the specification sheet entitled Truss Blade LED by Federal Heath Visual Communications dated August 8, 2018, and therefore a waiver granting 4 additional signs is required. And whereas Section 220-48.6C of the code allows the Planning Board and Zoning Commission to waive one or more of the requirements of the Town Center Overlay District, Neighborhood Commercial, and Highway Commercial Standards. And whereas the Planning Board has reviewed whether the proposed monument sign upgrades are consistent with previous approvals and allowable within the area variances previously granted. And whereas the Planning Board has reviewed the 5 4.07 square foot synergy blade signs mounted above the gas station podiums for their effect on the aesthetics of the site and surrounding area. And whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission has determined that the proposed waiver for 4 additional promotional signs would have a minimum negative effect on the aesthetics and is compatible with the existing neighborhood character. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant said waivers to allow for the signage as described on a specification sheet entitled Truss Blade LED by Federal Heath Visual Communications dated August 8, 2018. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds that the site plan, in conjunction with said waiver, meets the requirements of the zoning code, previous site plan approvals, and therefore does hereby grant final site plan approval for signage improvements to the mobile gas station at 1502 Balltown Road, subject to the following conditions. 1, this resolution shall be incorporated into any deed of sale for this property, and if the conditions of this resolution shall be binding on the applicant, the owner if different than the applicant, their successors, assigns, or transferees. 2, the proposed price signage on the monument sign shall be a static display of the price of regular gas only. 3, prior to beginning any of the above referenced site plan changes, the applicant is required to obtain a building permit from the Town of Niskuna's Building Department.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Twitty. Can I have a motion on the resolution? How about I move that this resolution be adopted? Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McPartland, and we will definitely have some discussion here. Could you state your name?
Yes, my name is Eric Bass. I'm with Station Road, the company that installs the apertures and LED price sign.
Okay, thanks. I talked, we got this over the weekend. I did speak to Mr. Twitty today regarding this resolution. There's just quite a bit of paperwork here, and I think the bottom line is if you get to the last page, is that through discussions with the planning office, the application was modified basically for the 5 smaller blade signs versus, what the original submittal was. And the blade signs are shown.
Smaller ones.
Yeah. Okay, everything is numbered here. But I guess that would be, this picture here. Yeah, this picture, it's not the long wraparound sign, but just the small ones that say Synergy over the dispensing stations, right? There are 5 dispensing stations, so there would be a Synergy sign over each of the 5 stations. You can correct me if I'm off base at all.
Correct.
And one sign is allowed, and what we are providing in this resolution is a waiver for the other 4 signs to make a total of 5 Synergy signs. The other part of the resolution is for the modification of the, what do you call that sign?
Price sign.
Yeah, price sign, but there's a name for it. But anyway, that
Monument.
monument sign. I'm losing it. Thank you. So for the monument sign, and that's shown also picture there, and we've had other applications in front of us where we've allowed The sign looks like it's going to stay approximately the same size, the way I understand it, but it'll change the pricing to a digital display. Also, the digital display, per the resolution, would be a static display, so it's not going to be flashing or changing. It's just going to be basically on so that everybody can see, and I assume it'll be on both sides.
Correct.
Because it's on two sides now, the pricing information. One issue with the resolution, or just a minor typo that we need to correct, is on condition number 2, where it states that the sign shall be a static display of the price of regular gas only. I'm going to propose that we make a modification, that we delete "of the price of regular gas only," because the submittal is for the sign is going to show both the regular gas and the diesel, which I think kind of brackets the high and the low, probably, most likely. Or, but I don't know if it brackets high or low, but that's what shows. It shows the diesel and the regular pricing, right?
Yes.
So we're not going to limit it just to the price of regular gas.
So I just want to make one thing clear. So one of the larger wave signs is going to be there?
These signs, no. These like, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, so they're all wave signs. So
No,
will
just
there be any?
No, there'll be 5 of these blades. over
5 of the
gas
blades.
5 of the blades.
Okay,
signs.
so I mean,
Waves.
the
No,
picture-
no waves.
Oh,
No
thank you.
waves.
Yeah, I mean,
Did I say-
we're asking because the picture shows one and then
Yeah,
5
originally we were
blades. I
trying
mean, 4
to
blades.
get those, yeah, but they switched it over.
And if I said
blades.
wave,
We're
I,
gonna prepare a negative resolution with those in there. So we told them that and they took them out.
Am I the only one who thinks here that this is kind of an odd combination of colors?
Oh, what, the red, you mean?
The red, the blue, and then the color and the brown and the white of Stewart's. Like it seems like
Brown and white?
the Stewart's building itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have nothing to do with the color. That's ExxonMobil themselves.
Yeah, I'm just saying in general, recognizing, taking a step back from the visual.
Yeah.
Again, just having seen this for the first time this weekend, it just seems a little. I think the color combination's a little odd. I mean, I understand that this is I understand you have it at other locations.
Yeah.
But with different types of convenience stores.
It is a little obnoxious. It's meant to be. That's why if this definitely were blade signs, I think we wouldn't be.
No, but
saying that.
even looking at the diagrams with just the blades.
Just the blades, yeah.
Yes.
And following up on that too, I guess I'd like to understand a little, if you can speak to what exactly is being advertised with these.
It's their new fuel technology, which is a synergy technology. And that's,
So
it's just, they got a new type of fuel that they're dispensing. And that's all it is.
But it's already in the pumps, right?
It's already in the ground. Yeah, it's in the pumps. Yep.
No, I mean, the label is in the bottom part of the pumps.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Synergy's on the doors as well as the pumps. Yep.
these things also have lights underneath, right? They light up the dispensing stations.
When you were saying that, I didn't think they were going LED with these ones.
Yeah, they have.
They are.
It says LED illuminate strip, right, so it's shining down on the
Yeah,
pump.
it would be a small strip underneath. It's about 2 inches wide, dispensing down, not to anybody's vision, just on top of the pump.
Yeah, so let me just speak personally for me. So I actually don't have a big deal with the changes to the monument sign and the LED. That I'm kind of okay with that. But even in blade form, the rest of this is a little much.
Yeah.
Especially since the Synergy is already getting displayed on the pump. I'm glad we're able to get those wave signa into something that are blades, but even the blades I think are a lot.
I agree.
So I guess the question is that what happens if
well, the content of the sign can change too, right?
Right.
If there's a different fuel technology, let's say Synergy becomes something else.
Down the road, I'm sure it's a possibility. Yeah.
How often does that happen?
These are brand new, so they're just coming out with all this. I don't know if this is the first time they're putting them up.
Yeah,
so
but the point I'm making, it's already being advertised in the pump. It's already there.
Yep.
So this would be really doubling that ad space for no reason.
Do we know if there was any plan to upgrade the pumps themselves?
The pumps are brand new. I just
No, brand-
stopped by the station before I got
I
here.
drove by, but I kind of missed
Yeah,
it.
no,
I just
the
looked, counted
pumps
them.
the pumps are brand new there. So we wouldn't be doing anything to the pumps. Usually we do have to re-image older pumps, but those are brand new on that site.
I was just looking at the how they're mounted. It
Yep.
looks like it's an aluminum bracket with some heavy duty bolts.
Yes.
And did I read correctly? They're rated for pretty high wind. It looks like 180 mile per hour.
Yep. We installed all over the country. We never had one fall off before.
And these aren't internally lit, it's just the LED light strip down,
2-inch strip along the bottom of the blade itself.
so there's no internal.
Down, no
No
out
internal.
or up.
All right.
Is there an expectation on the, for the distributors that there's going to be widespread branding of mobile fuel? So are other gas stations anticipated to come?
Yes, we've installed these over 1,000 in the past 2 years. They're going, ExxonMobil is pushing for other sites to have these apertures on them.
So she was
Including-
taking a picture, but they're on the corner of 146 in that road that goes to Clifton Park. I don't know if you guys go to the Clifton Park Mall a lot. And they actually have the huge.
Yeah, did Harry's, is Harry's planning on doing
Yeah,
these?
because that's a mobile.
Oh, I haven't heard from them.
The airport, I know the one.
Yeah, the one by going on the Albany Tri, or.
Yeah, we actually
Jeff
installed
has
that
a
site.
Latham one too. Jeff says there's one in Latham.
But that's
mean-
convenience store is a little, I mean, it's a different kind of convenience store.
Yeah, I mean, that's right in the
Yeah.
middle of downtown Clifton
Yeah.
Park. It's still actually pretty bright. I noticed them.
My thing is I'm looking at it, even if it's only just the blade signs, I think the color's a little,
It's
it's just a
very bright.
combination, but it just seems a little
Yeah, and
contrasting.
And I think one step deeper for me, this specific property, going through the history of it, when the Stewart's is there with a mobile, this is not like every other mobile convenience store. So I think we have these variances at our, precedences at our disposal. I think we're allowed to treat this property a little bit differently than if it were just
We
a
absolutely
regular.
are. I mean, we
mobile.
didn't even want to bring it to the planning board with the wave signs. We felt like it was worth, the applicant could give it a try with the blade signs because it's obviously less. And I actually think they're slightly smaller than is showing in that
Yeah,
Photoshop.
that visual that she sent, they're not that big.
They're not quite that big. But I mean, I still think it's a waiver and it's obviously very bright red. I mean, you notice it. So it's really something to consider.
Yeah.
Like this guy, I don't have any problem. We've given other convenience
Yeah, with
stores
the
to do
monument
like to do the digital posting of the prices. I mean, but that's it. I'm not a fan of the blade
Yeah.
signs.
So if we said no to the synergy signs, what's
If
their
you won.
recourse to go to the,
Yes, they can appeal our decision to the zoning board.
yeah, but, so hang on. There are synergy signs on the pumps already.
Yeah.
So why would there be a need for any additional? I'm not saying even one.
So this is some
Yeah, it's-
corporate branding that they're doing at all the stations. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
But this is a Stewart's and a mobile.
Correct.
Right.
They're just pumping ExxonMobil gas.
Because on the color coding thing, we allowed Stewart's to keep their color,
Mhm.
right? Increasing the color complexity on the site.
I also want to add, I think with the downward LED lights, I mean, this is a very brightly illuminated space. It's just going to magnify. It's really going to stand out. I mean, I just think it's not only is it concentration of colors, but it's a concentration of kind of LED lighting, which in the end, in another 5 years, is it going to be Entropy is going to be the next, brand that the mobile's going to provide us.
Not to mention, if this is done, what will happen across the street to try to
Yeah,
up
absolutely.
the ante?
That's right. We have a race to the bottom.
That's a mobile, is that mobile also?
Sunoco.
Sunoco.
In fact, you didn't know. Right.
They're going to want the
Well, we
color
don't
of the
think
sun.
they're gonna
Yeah.
have a monument sign.
Right, right, exactly.
So, I mean, if we were to take the waiver out, we can modify the resolution, or we can modify the resolution with the waiver out of it. Or Rob, do we have to vote this one down and then have the proposal come back?
If the resolution is salvageable, you could have a motion to amend the resolution with a second and then vote on the amendment and then the amended resolution. My concern is that I don't necessarily want this board providing solutions to applicants. What you have before you is a proposal. If the applicant chooses or requests a modification, then you can vote to amend. But otherwise, you just have to vote on what's in front of you.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm not sure what the urgency is for the pricing for the monument sign. It'd be nice, if you would request an amendment so we could go forward on the monument sign. That would allow you to, to make those changes and upgrade. And then if you decide to pursue, going to the ZBA, that would be your option.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, what do we gotta do?
So we basically request,
For the sign itself, the LED trace.
The monument sign.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
go forward with the monument sign and pull the request for the blade signs for the, all right?
Okay.
And then, like I said, if you decide to pursue it or with your, with whoever the sponsor is, then that would be up to you to, to file the paperwork with the ZBA and get on that agenda.
All right.
Sound good? All right, so we'll need a motion to modify the resolution per the request of the applicant. Basically, we're going to remove the request for the blade signs, which in this resolution states 4 blade signs, a waiver for 4 and 1 that would have been approved. So we remove all blade signs. We'd also like modify condition number 2 to strike of the price of regular gas only, so that the monument sign will be a static display as shown in the attachment dated 3/14/19, basically a picture that shows both the pricing for the regular and diesel. Do I have a motion to make those? I guess I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, seconded by Mr. Scrivby-Tennis. Any further discussion?
So could we read what the final form of resolution is going to look like?
Yeah, so. You want me to read it? I'll read it. I'm gonna read it really fast. Whereas Lizzie Holloway of Station Glow LLC has made an application to the planning board for signage improvements to the mobile gas station at 1502 Balltown Road that include replacing the existing gas price signage with segmentable LED lights and the zone.
And deleting.
Yeah, so we would delete the synergy blade sign.
Okay.
And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CN neighborhood commercial, and whereas the location of the square footage of the site's existing monument sign received an area variance from the zoning board of appeals on March 16th, 1995, then the next 3 whereases would be removed.
Yep.
And then it would say, whereas the planning board has reviewed whether the proposed monument sign upgrades are consistent with previous approvals and allowable within the area variances previously granted. And the next whereas would get removed. Whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon. Now therefore be it hereby, and the first 2 resolved clauses would be removed. Resolved that the planning board and zoning commission finds that site plan meets the requirements of, in conjunction with said waiver would be removed, meets the requirements of the zoning code, previous site plan approvals, and does hereby grant final site plan approval for signage improvements to the mobile gas station of 1502 Balltown Road, subject to the following conditions. And the conditions.
Do you have to say modified site plan because they're going to be modified? You just got to resubmit it?
Is it saying there?
Which is fine at the site plan, but I thought the site plan as proposed contains
Yeah,
the
we-
blade signs.
That is good clarification for the record, yeah. So finds that the site plan as modified by the applicant.
I hate to be a stickler, but
That's-
could you just, wouldn't it be better if we issued a new resolution with a new set of pictures and it's like.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely can too.
And do
It's
that.
up to you guys.
And just vote on it next time.
Yeah, the one advantage to that, and I don't know what the timeline is that you are allowed a 6 square foot, well, like 1 promotional sign. You would still need site plan approval for that 6 square foot promotional sign, but you might be able to come back with a proposal that actually doesn't require any waivers, and the planning board could look at it. I don't know what your timeline is for the monument sign. That's what Kevin was getting at.
Yeah, the monument sign.
I'm not too sure either. I just come to the meetings. I don't know. I don't talk to the client, so cannot tell you when it's supposed to be going up.
Maybe it's cleaner.
Yeah.
It's cleaner. It's just that we made a
Yeah, well,
major
then-
change.
Yeah, it's a lot, awful lots.
We're
of-
about scratching out as much as we're
So
leaving on.
let's, so we would make a motion then.
To table it?
Table the
Yeah.
resolution.
And that would, and that would give you the opportunity to, talk to Mr. Twitty or Laura at the planning office, get it all cleaned up, and then the resolution would reference, explicitly, instead of having, we got lots of paperwork, and then at the end, we have the letter that was received on, let's see, 4/24, probably via email, I assume, right? That basically says, hey, we're just going to go with the smaller blade sign. So we'll kind of clean it all up. And then when you speak to, I guess they'd be the applicant, they may have some other ideas or something they want to do in lieu of all this.
All right.
So what we'll do is we'll make a motion I'll make a motion to table this resolution. Do I have a second on that? Second by Mr. Khan. All those in favor of tabling this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. So we'll work with the planning office and we'll clean this up. Again, it looks like, obviously we have no problem with the changes to LED lighting on the monument sign. Really, it's these blade signs that are causing us some issues there.
All right. All right, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And thanks to the board. And we just saw that over the weekend for the first time,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I know
we're
it's
just
tough.
making way too heavy edits, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, well, with
Yeah,
most of the
thank you.
resolution.
All right, let me find my agenda. I'll move on. Okay, next we have Resolution 2019-11, a resolution for site plan approval of a nail salon and spa at 3333 Council Road. Mr. Coody.
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on an application for a site plan review, whereas Sai Fong Zin, owner of Coco Salon and Spa, has made an application to the planning board for new tenant Suite 3 of Niskuna Square at 3333 Council Road, as shown on the drawing submitted to the planning department on April 16, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CN, Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District, and whereas the planning department has referred this application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, and the chief of police, and there were no objections to the proposal. And whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal, and by this resolution does set forth its decision you're on. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that this planning board and zoning commission finds that the tenant change for Suite 3 of Niskuna Square at 3333 Council Road meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves this site plan and tenant space with the following condition. 1, the applicant shall provide the planning department with copies of all relevant state licenses for the operation of the business and for each employee as applicable.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion for Mr. Khan making a motion to approve the resolution. A second? Seconded by Mr. Osser. And any discussion at all? So it looks like it was a nail salon. It's going to be a nail salon, right? And you submitted a sketch, showing the layout of the inside, and this is ShopRite Plaza, right?
No,
Or excuse me,
Hanford.
that's what I meant, Hannaford Plaza. I got ShopRite on my mind here. Okay, Council Road.
May I ask, it's advertised as nail salon and spa. What's the spa function?
The spa just like people sometimes do the facials.
I'm sorry?
The facials.
Facials?
Yeah. nail
Is it
and
limited to facials and nails?
Yes.
Or no other?
No other like a body spa. No.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, I think it's very similar to the use that was there before. The reason we're asking is sometimes spa means full massage, and that's a different license. So we went through this whole thing about if you massage beyond the knee, whatever. I don't know if you guys remember that.
So
no massaging.
So are you familiar with what was there in the previous nail salon by any chance?
Huh?
The previous nail salon, do you know what services they provided?
Previous business that was there?
Sorry, I don't understand.
So there was a nail salon there in this location before.
I have the location just here, first one.
Right, that's for you, but in this location, there was a nail salon before. I think you're answering my question, actually.
Yeah.
You don't know that there was one before. So let me ask, what's the waxing station?
Waxing?
Yeah,
Waxing just like eyebrows.
okay.
Lip.
Facial,
Yes.
okay.
Are you buying any new equipment?
New equipment. Seasonal.
Any waxing station or tables and chairs? Are they existing?
We have set out a room. The people just waxing. So some people do the like a neck wax, and just basically
Chairs.
have the table inside.
Already?
Yes, already.
And Jeff has already received their operating licenses, I believe.
Yeah. They need a store license.
Mm-hmm.
You've already gotten it, or?
Yep. Nice. You can hold on to that.
I send the personal information? I send to you. Yeah, that's just I got it.
All right.
Laura and Jeff, just for my benefit, what are the applicable state licenses that are typically required for a salon? For nails?
Yeah, I think just a cosmetology license to do nails in particular, which we received from the applicant, I believe, 4 licenses for 4 employees.
It's from DOH?
Yeah, I think it is.
Department of State.
Oh, is it Department
Department
of
of
State?
State.
Okay.
So, Laura, is there actually an existing wall right now that divides the property?
I believe there is, yeah.
Okay.
What about your hours of operation?
Ours is like a 10 to 8. And Sunday is like a,
It's on your
10 to 8,
application.
okay.
Is it?
Saturday and Sunday too. Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? No? No?
We think there's no parking issues given the same nature
Since
of
it's
the
a,
property.
Yeah.
since it's a reuse, same use that was there previously, I don't think there'd be any issues. Okay, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Yes.
Mr. Scribby Tennis?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin?
Aye.
Mr. DiRapino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye, resolution is adopted, so thank you, and good luck with the business.
thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you. Oh, sure, okay. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome. All right, you need anything else? You all set there, Jeff, with the applicant, everything you need and everything? Okay. All right, last resolution tonight, Resolution 2019-12, resolution for site plan approval of a real estate office at 2147 Eastern Parkway.
One of the purposes of this meeting was to take action on an application for a site plan review. Whereas Lisi Development Co. has made an application to the planning board for a real estate office at 2147 Eastern Parkway, as shown on a site plan entitled 2147 Eastern Parkway Professional Building, received by the planning department on April 16, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CN, Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District, and whereas the planning board referred this application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, the fire district chief, and the chief of police, and there were no objections to the proposal. And whereas the board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the planning board and zoning commission finds that the site plan referenced above meets the requirements of the zoning code and hereby approves this site plan in tenant space.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion on the resolution? Moved by Mr. Oster and seconded by Mr. DiRapino. We'll have some discussion. Mr. Mahar, how are you doing tonight?
Well, guys, how are you? Thank you.
Yeah.
Shane Mahar on behalf of Blue Lisi and Lisi Development. A quick little backstory or some history on the project here. We took ownership of 2147 Eastern Parkway in 2017. The previous doctors who owned and operated that facility moved into the second floor of the Albany Med Building at 1769 Union Street. And as part of our development there, we took ownership of this building. It's been previously listed for lease, for sale, no tenants until now. We've debated what we wanted to do with the property, but for the better part of the last 2 years, it has been vacant. Picket Fence Realty is currently owned and operated by a local longtime Capital Region realtor. He is currently running a local office for the national Weichert realtor chain out of Latham and is seeking to now branch out and go on his own. And sought us out for the space, knowing that we own the property, and he's looking to take about 1,600 square feet of the center core of the building. Right now, 4 realtors, all working part-time, plan to operate out of that building. And to some of the comments regarding the site, yes, so that, we've paid the taxes and the water bill and kept the lights on, but we've not done much with the property over the last 2 years. Our landscaper was on site last week to start to trim some of the dead vegetation, the trees, and to start to spruce up the front entranceway. We've discussed pressure washing the building and doing some other improvements there to make it look much more nicer and blend better back into the community as an operating facility. So that's the quick version, I guess.
And just There's just a 2-foot by 3-foot sign proposed for the front door.
That's all I've asked for. There's, the previous owners had it condoed. We consolidated the condo upon our ownership. And there were 3 separate offices, the center core, and then there are 2 wings, either the left or the right, that are nearly identical. So to identify the proper door for people to come in and out of, our realtors asked to put a small 2x3 sign on that center door to identify that is the proper entrance. There is a sign out on the center, I'll call it the island, because there's a half circle driveway that's in front of the building that has 2147 Eastern Parkway on it already, and that's been long establishing. No changes to that sign, no additions to that sign. We would just put something on that front door there so folks know that center door is the real estate office.
Okay. Is that something, Laura, that the building department needs to look at, or is that just considered, just basic sign, putting it on the door?
The facade sign going on the
On the-
building
no,
would,
yeah, yeah.
would still be a building permit.
You
Yeah.
still need a building
Yeah.
permit for
Mhm.
that? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And as far as, in the agenda.
Unless it's, I mean, if it's on the inside of the door, then no, but if it's
Yeah,
actually
it's going to be
out
on the
I
outside.
of the
believe
building,
they're
it's
just,
building
they wanted to put it on the outside
Yeah.
of the door.
yeah, then it's
So-
a building permit, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Include that in the building permit application, assuming that this gets approved. And as far as, the agenda statement mentions, housekeeping of the vegetation. I did take a ride over there today, took a look at the property. There some things have died, and I don't know, it looks like, I don't know if there are trees growing out.
There's
some
more
of the bushes
improvements
there,
coming,
but it looks like it needs to be trimmed. And I hate to put a condition on the resolution just to do some cleanup, but your intent is to,
Continue the
Is it-
cleanup.
is it
So
cleaned up?
we've mowed the lawn the last 2 years. The same company that maintains Albany Med for us and some of our other properties does a weekly mowing there. So we've kept the grass trimmed, but haven't done much with the actual landscaping and or the trees. Last Wednesday, he was in town for us, started to do some prep work, did trim up some of the trees, did clean out some of the old dead vegetation that was in the immediate front of the building. I spoke to him today. He'll be back, in the coming weeks to finish that and keep that all
yeah, I mean, that's your intent to make it look
Correct.
good, right? Because
correct.
you want-
Especially now that there'll be someone coming and going, every day as a business and whatnot. So
But 2 of the big trees are dead. Like 2 of the big trees out front
Out
of
in
the
front?
building. Yeah. No, on the left, those 2. Those 2 are dead. And Patrick, did you get a chance to drive by?
Yeah, so, I'm not really an expert in agronomy, I'm certainly not an arborist, but they all seem to be budding. So
Oh, the 2 on the side?
today, yeah. But, in general, I noticed
Yeah.
that bed and the lawn
Yep.
in the front, probably could use a little maintenance and, I parked in front and I walked around. The other thing I noticed too is you've got ample parking there,
Mhm.
but I think it would be nice to have that restriped.
Okay.
There's no clear.
no
areas of
definitive
parking.
lines.
You don't want to block any points of egress.
Right.
So I think it would make sense to have that maybe seal coated, restriped.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly talk about it. Absolutely.
Now, since there's only 4,
Right now, there's 4 part-time real estate
Yeah.
agents who will be
So-
out of there.
so I guess my question is, for only 4, do we need to, make a condition to do that? Or I'm assuming that you'll be back for additional
Yeah, I
tenants
mean, the
sooner or
hope,
later?
the hope is that, maybe we can find some folks to take the additional space and or see where this gentleman's business takes him. Maybe he'll want to increase his footprint within the building and or, what the future of the property will be. It'll be listed for sale for lease going forward. And if somebody steps in with an offer, we'll have to weigh that when that time comes.
So it's still for sale, the property?
Correct.
Are there interior doors that allow access between the condo units?
The back corridor is all open. That there's a center common hallway that connects all 3 condos, I guess, for lack of better words, together. That has old medical doctor's offices off that back wall there.
Because I noticed it looks like you've got kind of an employee staff entrance in the back.
Correct. There's an employee staff entrance. When you come in the back, there's a small utility room there that's got all the electrical meters and all the phone cable systems. And then that opens up into a hallway. You can go to quick diagonal into the center core, and then either right or left takes you to either wing. And then either wing is nearly identical with their footprint with the old medical offices and the doctor's offices. Exam rooms, the waiting rooms, reception area, et cetera.
So we may not require the seal coat, but it's a good recommendation. I think that would be a smart thing to at least discuss. I'm glad it was brought up because it just, I went by it too, and I just didn't know really, just didn't have a descriptive path, you know.
I mean, there's no
method
doubt
approach.
the whole property needs some loving
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
Like I said, I mean, we've paid the taxes, paid the utilities, we've kept the lights on the last couple of years, but really have not spent the money because there's been no one operating out of there. You know, like I said, our landscaper was here last Wednesday to start the process. We've talked about pressure washing. Certainly, we'll talk about the striping and the seal coating. And there's some other general maintenance on the building that we should be doing to keep it up, especially now that there's folks coming and going on a daily basis.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, do we need to make it a condition, or I mean, there's only 4 cars is my view. If there's going to be an increase in usage above the 1,600 square feet that called out in this resolution, then I think
we'd certainly have to come back.
We got to
So
have
that
to
would
do
be-
something when you get more cars over there, but I think you'd be okay personally with 4, but it's only my opinion.
There's a building permit application they have to do anyway, right, to do the work?
We usually require a building permit follow-up. Are there no interior changes?
Not at this time, no.
Yeah, so we've still required a building permit, and then the building inspector just checks and makes sure that like there's exit lights and such things, but it's very minimal.
Okay. So that wouldn't cover seal coating the parking lot?
No. Mm-mm.
I
Nope.
thought a builder permit's not required for that, right?
For seal coating a
coating.
parking lot, it's not required.
Yeah, it'd just be maintenance, right? Routine maintenance. Does anybody?
For me, it's mostly a safety issue because there's an entrance or exit on both sides. So if you want the flow, you should probably think about it. If you want the flow of traffic,
Right.
you could put in a directional arrow, but also you want to limit parking close to those entrances and exits
Right.
for obvious reasons.
Okay, so are we good with the resolution as written? Yep, okay, all
I'm good with it.
right. All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Mr. Scrubby Tennis?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin?
Aye.
Mr. DiRapino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye, resolution adopted.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you and good luck. Hopefully works out well and continue to grow over there and. Okay. All right, that's it for new business tonight. Thank you, everybody. Discussion item, we of course have what's on the agenda, which is 738 Pierce Road, the 2-lot minor subdivision. We have the applicant and their engineer here tonight. So I guess we'll get an update on that. I don't know, Mr. DiRapino, if you would like to talk about that or planning
Sure.
office, either one.
Roberto? Yeah. Or Luigi, whichever. We'll take both.
Good evening, Luigi Palesci with ABD Engineers, also Roberto Squalia here. We were retained to pretty much look at the drainage analysis for the 2-lot subdivision on Pierce Road. It has an existing house on it now, existing driveway, garage, 2 garages actually. The existing garages will be removed and the existing home will remain as part of the 2-lot subdivision. There is a proposed addition on the existing home. Lot 2 will be subdivided and 1 new home is proposed on that lot. The existing driveway that you see out there today will actually serve the same orientation or layout of the newly proposed lot number 2. A new driveway will be proposed for lot number 1 to the existing home. There is an existing culvert pipe under Pierce Road that collects a lot of the drainage from the town and the roadway, and it drains into an existing ditch line that goes through the Lot 1. There's an existing drainage course. We're not proposing at this time to touch that drainage course. I recall seeing previous plans from the surveyor with possibly rerouting the drainage course. When we looked at the drainage analysis, we felt that, in our opinion, we don't need to reroute the drainage course. So the existing drainage ditch will remain. And as part of our drainage analysis, we're providing on-site infiltration basins, we call them. They're just shallow depressions on the lots that are next to the drainage ditches, which will, the rooftop will sheet flow and drain into these areas where then they'll just infiltrate back into the ground. If it's a larger storm event greater than a 25-year storm, we do have provisions for overflow into the existing drainage course. So when we look at it, the existing drainage, the existing amount of water that's going through that existing drainage course, and our proposal, we're not proposing to discharge any more peak discharge rates to that existing drainage corridor. So with that, I did provide this drainage report to the town. I haven't received any comments regarding that, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions. But we're here for a 2-lot subdivision, and if you have any additional questions on that, Roberto's here with me to answer for the 2-lot. We're not the surveyors. We didn't do the subdivision. I'm really here for the drainage, but we can certainly answer any questions that you might have.
Is there going to be modifications to the proposed 2-lot subdivision map that we received? Looks like 10/22/18 is the last date. Add contours per the town request. Is that where it stands? Do we know?
Yeah, I asked him that ahead of time. They wanted to see how the planning board felt about leaving the drainage ditch and the relocation of the driveway. And if we generally were okay with that, then they would redraw up the subdivision for us. But it hasn't been redrawn yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of odd that the map on the drainage report does not reflect.
It doesn't. No, they're not the same yet.
I think we want to have that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's just on for discussion because when we had the public hearing, we heard a lot of comments about drainage. So we have the drainage study now for you guys to have any questions on the drainage study. And it's also a pretty big change from what we originally saw to see the proposed addition going behind the building. I know when the tree council walked the site, there's a lot of really large white pines. And one of the questions that we had would be the relocation of the driveway impact any of those big trees that we were talking about. But I know that, I think you said you relocated the driveway because of some culvert in the county right of way?
Well, the original plan had the proposed driveway like crossing the drainage ditch. And when we looked at the drainage analysis, I found a better way. Why cross that drainage ditch and disturb more trees? I figured we could still come in and be on this, existing lot, or what we're proposing as the existing lot 1, and providing the driveway to the existing home. You'll see there's a utility pole and overhead wires that, run to the existing home, and, we could sort of take that path and utilize or move the layout of the driveway so that it impacts less amount of trees. I did talk to Roberto and his father regarding the trees on site, and, we'll definitely be willing to save as many trees as possible. Again, not knowing the exact footprint of each of these homes, at time of building permit, when you do have all the jogs and everything, and, you can fine tune, everything that you need to get the building permit to save trees as well. So, and I know that, the town has a review process as to, when the house is staked, the tree committee goes out and reviews it to ensure that, we can possibly save additional trees, or we can't save them because of the foundation.
Did the tree committee actually go out and mark trees already on this property? Or
They
just pick-
didn't mark trees because the initial subdivision that you have is really, they're not taking down any trees because they're using the existing driveway and they're putting the home where the garage is that they're taking down.
Right.
And then the trees, well, they were going to take a lot of trees down. Well, they were going to take some trees down because they were rerouting that thing. But they weren't, they were sort of brush and willows and stuff. And the trees that the tree council really liked on this property is really old, large white pines. And there was a stump and one of the tree councils like counted the rings and it was like 150 years old. So their recommendations were to just keep as many of those white pines because they're so unique. There's really not a lot of them in Niskayuna because we don't have the sandy soils that support the white pines. This is a very probably unusual site. But they didn't specifically mark trees. They basically just said, make sure that the driveways retain as much existing vegetation as possible and retain those old growth trees.
Okay.
And protect the trees during construction.
So do you have so are there any plans to take down any of those white pines?
It's hard for me to say. We can certainly take a look at that when we update the subdivision plan.
Yeah, they're concentrated on the south side and towards the back of the property. And, it's a unique site because where that garage was, there's a large cleared plat. And where the existing house is, the side addition that they're going to take off to the south, where the proposed addition would be very tricky because of the configuration of the roof line of the existing house. It's a very, very steep pitch. And putting it on the back of the house not only solves the drainage ditch issue of not having to touch it, but I think it's going to be easier for you to do an addition off the back of the house, even with a garage around the backside. Not disturbing that ditch is, I think, a benefit, and the foliage that's on the north end of that property. So, although not as dense as the south end, but it is a really unique property because it just encompasses the current lot like an envelope.
So, Mr. DiRapino, did you get a copy of our drainage report? Is that what you're looking at?
Yep.
Yeah.
We all received a copy.
So you're saying the proposed addition on the backside is what you prefer?
I think it's going to solve your
Right.
addition better than it is off Justified sort of to the north side, tacking onto the back of the house.
Okay.
It's a really, really steeply pitched roof. So it's a tough thing to tie into.
And you would know, I know.
I would know.
All right.
Is there a proposed garage for the existing house? It will.
They would,
Like a turn-in spacing.
Side load.
Side load, okay. You might need
Yeah,
you might need a little extra
Turning.
pavement for that.
yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Laura, lot one is, and to my fellow board members, lot one still remains a pretty substantial lot. It's just shy of an acre. Would we want to make sure that we don't get a subsequent, based on what we just experienced, get a subsequent application for another subdivision for a flag lot? I mean, one could contemplate such a proposal to put a house in the rear.
I mean, that is something that our comp plan discourages. And so when we see those flag lots, the zoning board is pretty
know,
consistent in their denials. But I think
What if we just get an
moving
affirmative
forward,
statement, right? Given just what we experienced, right? So
Mhm.
there's clarity, there's no anticipation that this.
Yeah, no further subdivision.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Talk to Mr. DiRapino. Would you come on up and state your name, please, so we get you on record? Appreciate it.
Gennaro Squalia. Roberta's dad. I don't think you could actually put another lot there because of the water, the drain. So you can really, unless somebody filled it without telling anyone.
So we're just basically discussing whether we just have a condition, say it's impossible anyway, then we wouldn't have any hard spot with having a condition that says no further, subdivision allowed, just to keep it clean. Because, even with water, there's ways to mitigate, depending on how much money you want to put into it. So I agree with Mr. Scripputennis. We could have a condition and just captures that. And Mr. DiRapino, we talked about that earlier today also.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So,
Yeah, we should have a condition in that.
yep, that's something we'll be evaluating on
tell
each subdivision as I
Yeah,
go
we'll tell
forward.
all future developers.
You
We'll
got
tell-
it.
We'll tell them to thank Lou.
So the only other thing that was missing on the plans that we'd probably want to look at is we would want to know what the proposed ground floor elevations were, because we've had a couple of recent subdivisions where the elevation of the home was much higher than we anticipated. So we just want to be checking that all the elevations are consistent with the surrounding homes, so that you don't have like, all the homes at 200 and then you have two homes that are like 205 and they just are up on hills and make the neighbors really just don't fit in the neighborhood. So we want to make sure that the ground floor elevations are similar to the surrounding ground floor elevations.
I would tend to disagree with that because it has to go with when you dig a test pit, depending on if there's high groundwater, you don't want the basement in and near groundwater. So that's really going to determine the finished floor elevation of these homes.
I mean, we can certainly look at that, but if that makes the houses, 5 or 10 feet higher than the surrounding houses so that they can have a basement, maybe it just ends up being a crawl space house. I don't know.
I mean, if you've been to the lot, right, the back of the lot sits 5-6 feet higher than the road. So, every lot is different than your surrounding lots. Are you talking about the two, like
No.
these two side by side, or with the entire
Yeah, like what we want to get
existing
away
development
from
that's
is
20 years old?
Well, yeah, but what we want to get away from is having, a consistent height with positive drainage. Obviously, building code says you have to have positive drainage
Right.
from all the houses, but having a consistent elevation, a consistent setback, but then all of a sudden having a house that's sort of on a hill, much higher than all the other houses. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's just something we're checking. I think we've run into it at a couple of things that we reviewed over the past, and it's something that we just want to be more consistent about reviewing.
Well, in this case, it sounds like you need to get more data, right, to see what you got. And I mean, if there's a hill and it has a natural grade to it and you build the house, it might naturally be higher than the other house.
Which is
If you-
fine.
Which is fine. I mean, if you're going to be bringing in material in to build it up, the elevation, and to her point is maybe then you do something different with the basement. But I don't think we're to that point yet, right, until you get some more data on the site.
Well, we have existing topography on here, but, you're looking for a grading plan, I guess, at this point?
Well, usually we have the grading plan as like condition that gets reviewed, right? Because
Mhm.
Like during
But
the
we
building
usually
permit
see
process?
GFEs, just a basic GFE on a subdivision plan. Pretty sure you have that on your 1380 Van Antwerp plan. You have the GFEs, don't you? They're usually on there. This one just isn't.
Luigi, your responsibility
maybe I'm
on
a
this
little
is only doing the
confused here.
drainage, right?
I'm sorry?
Your responsibility on this is only doing the
Yes,
drainage.
I think that's why I'm a little confused
Oh,
on
Not
this
doing-
project.
yeah.
Sorry, no, that's really a
Yeah.
comment for Roberto then.
Yeah, so this is really a comment for the owner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the actual subdivision plan does not show contours, is
Right.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it shows contour, it doesn't have GF.
Yeah, for the home.
There's no GFE.
Yeah, for the homes themselves, it doesn't show. There is for the, the proposed house, there is, for the proposed, there is, but not for the existing, it doesn't state.
There is?
Yeah, it says GFE of 101.5 on the two-lot subdivision, post-development.
It's this, so that's the funny thing, right? It's this picture, which is.
Oh, it's on his.
Yeah, on Luigi's.
Oh, yeah, Luigi does have his
And
on
they
the proposed
incorporated
house.
this previous plan for reference.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, we can do it, but we do want to see the whole thing with the.
Yeah, we can certainly coordinate with the surveyor to get this information onto the surveyor's plan.
Some of this one.
Oh, yeah, so it's already there. If that's the only one that we care about, it's already on your drainage study.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like that, you've done the analysis, it's with the town. Have we had a chance to review that, Laura? Somebody taking a look at that internally?
Yeah, the engineering department has preliminary comments that they just want to coordinate with the planning department before they issue.
Okay,
We'll have a resolution next.
so you get some comments, we'll take a look at that to see if they're significant or not. Update the subdivision map, to reflect, the changes, and, the comments regarding the driveway may need to be a little bit of a have a hammerhead or whatever you want to call it, so that you can get in and out of that side load garage, right? Show the finished floor elevations on the proposed subdivision. What else?
I think that's all. Sorry.
Then obviously the comments that were included in the agenda statement, which is, I assume either you got a copy of or you review it online, which, talks about maintaining the trees as much as possible, especially since you're relocating the driveway. There may be some impacts. I haven't gone over there to see where that all goes, see if there's any changes resulting from the change of the driveway. But it seems like, things are positive and going, so we should be able to get there, right?
Okay, I think it's a better plan. It's
Yeah.
less site disturbance, so.
Yep.
We'll be watching you as a developer that you don't clear cut everything. Set a good precedent.
All right.
No, it's a good solution.
All right. So I'll do some updates. Is that, and then we'll finish the review of the analysis, give you some feedback.
Do you guys want to call for a resolution, providing that we can reach all of those points, or do you want one more discussion item?
I'm okay having a resolution.
I mean, we can call for a tentative resolution if there's any significant comments from the report, the analysis. I guess we could always pull it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think there was enough legwork done on the first submission that we could call for the resolution.
All right. Just need to get your updates in though, in order to have it to go with the resolution, so we can call out the updated drawing, part of the resolution.
I mean, the key thing here is the main concern I got raised at the public hearing around drainage.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key thing is the report addresses it, right? And there's a plan. So I think I'm okay with a tentative resolution for the other things that were mentioned, right? Updating the drawing, trees.
Yeah, and double check all those things.
Any questions at all? No? Any other comments at all from the board? No? Okay, so it's work in progress. We'll get the information regarding the analysis back to you and take it from there.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so the new discussion item that's not shown on the agenda, obviously, is the 1380 Van Antwerp Road. I guess I'll kick it off. Basically, we pulled the resolution tonight because the resolution showed the sketch plan was the last one that we received that we discussed at the last several meetings, and it's also the one that the Conservation Advisory Council reviewed and gave us comments on. Over the weekend, a new sketch plan was sent out. The planning office received it this morning. And so the first time we got to see it was tonight. Everybody got it on the table here. So that's really the first time we've had an opportunity to look at it. And that's why the resolution was pulled tonight, since it wasn't consistent with the current sketch plan. All right. And the new sketch plan, we're not going to analyze it here, but bottom line, it basically shows the existing carriage house / garage being relocated on the property versus a future garage. So it's a relocation versus a new. And basically the driveway cuts to be able to support, make sure I got the right one. I got so much stuff here to support that. So the Conservation Advisory Council meets, Laura, I know you told me, is it next?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, so actually timing's pretty good. So they'll have an opportunity to update their feedback that they provided us, because this is a slight change, because the historic nature, at least, of the carriage house is being, salvaged. Yes, it's not its correct, the location, historic location, but that's something that the, this Conservation Advisory Council can give us some input on, right? And then we have basically this new sketch. And I'm sorry, Mr. McFarland, I didn't want to speak for you, but that's pretty much where it's at, right?
Yeah,
You might want to pull that forward.
It's a little disappointing because, I think it's been at least a month worth of meetings where we've been back and forth on, do we delay further? The majority of the site plan hasn't really been modified much over the course of the last month, until, of course, Monday, today,
Yep.
this morning. So a lot of work put in by the CAC, by the applicant's representative, Luigi, and, I'm a little disappointed too, because he put in a lot of work to address one of the major concerns that's been raised by neighbors and this board regarding the cumulative impact on the watershed and all of the drainage runoff of the previous subdivision and this proposed subdivision. And Luigi, similar to the application we just saw, he prepared a pre and post drainage summary. But now, having walked the site with Chairman Walsh last week and seeing where the carriage house is in its existing state and where its proposed location would be, and speaking with Mr. Lisi about the intention to have the garage at the same finished grade, there's a significant amount of fill or regrading that would need to be done. And I do worry that, some of the gains to the historical preservation of this carriage house might be offset by whatever disruption might occur to the
site.
The site. So, I don't know if that's too heavy of a lift to have a new drainage study performed. But like I said, I guess that's just the reality of receiving this revised plan at the 11th hour. So a little bit of fits and starts, but I think we just have to go through the motions and the procedure to fully evaluate this site plan before we can have a resolution.
So Laura, I had asked a question last time, and I actually think it's in the minutes, but if there's a building that's considered historic on a piece of property, to what extent is the property historic?
Right, you asked for us to look into what's the difference between a building and a site.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still looking into that, but we'll have that prepared for the next meeting.
I mean, does anybody, so we don't have an answer. I mean, you've said you don't have an answer yet, but is there an indication of an answer from?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guidance out there. Yeah, on building versus site. I mean, I feel like we even heard a little bit of it tonight. We can certainly.
Yeah, I actually thought Ms.
Yeah.
Beckner actually said that she considered it was historic.
Yeah.
But maybe I misinterpreted her words.
First of all, to Mr. McPartland's comment, Luigi has redone the drainage. He just
Oh.
hasn't been able to get it to you.
Oh.
So you'll have that shortly.
Oh, great.
New York State classifies any building, and me, apparently, because I'm over 50, as historic. That's just the way it's defined. For a setting to be historic, based on my conversations with OPRHP, it really goes to how has the setting changed over time. Now, obviously, the setting of this house has changed drastically between the 1960s and the present, because there's been a lot of houses built in that area, and the apartment buildings have been built across the way, and the retail, which wouldn't have been there, was built there. So when you drive through that area, or when you look down on the area, whatever view you look at, it's not a house with a farm. And it was, in fact, used as a professional office, which was no doubt why they added the substantial amount of paving that's there that you wouldn't find with your typical single-family house. So, historic, is it over 50 years old? Sure. Are there lots of other Dutch colonials that look just like it in the city of Schenectady? You betcha. So the question really becomes is there anything unique to the setting, such as a formal garden, like you find with houses on Long Island, which have historic significance? If you think of Yaddo up at Saratoga, if you think of Hyde Park and the Vanderbilt House, those have formal gardens. What we have here are some nice old trees and some forsythias that bloom in the spring. There's nothing unique or unusual about any of the vegetation on the property, and there's nothing historic about it other than the trees are older. And the client heard your concern about the trees and wanting to preserve the trees. And that was one of the site visits that took place to mark the trees that can be preserved. They can be shown on the subdivision plat. You can have restrictions on the subdivision plat. There's just a lot of discussion about the importance of this historic property, and the reality is no previous owner put a deed restriction on it. Could have been done. The planning board didn't require as a condition of any of its previous approvals that there be a deed restriction on it. When you put a restriction on something that says no future subdivision, any planning board after you can change that. That's not a restriction that runs with the land. So if you truly want to restrict the use of property, you really have to put a deed restriction in that provides notice to a subsequent property owner. But that's just my suggestion.
Yeah. So isn't there a basis to call the entirety of Lot 1 as it exists today, the lot that is proposed to be subdivided, the setting of that historic home?
I don't believe so, because the setting that.
We could have an interesting debate about it though, right? Because that setting hasn't changed, and we saw a picture of it today from the 1960s.
Well, sure, it's changed. There's houses built all around it.
But if I define the setting as being the lot that it's on, then the lot hasn't changed.
Yeah, that is not the definition of historic setting.
So what is the definition?
It is the surrounding around it. as
So what's the
opposed to
extent of
setting.
that? 1,000 feet, 100 feet, 50
Whatever
feet?
you can see.
Therefore,
Whatever you can see, looking out and looking in.
so I can look around that and I can see the extent of Lot 1 from McGovern to Hilltop to Van Antwerp.
I think the point is, what do you see when you stand on the property and look out? What you see are surrounding residential uses that weren't there when this was historic. And you see multifamily uses, and you see a brand-new house across the way. I mean, what we're proposing to build here are houses on Hilltop. We're not having any effect on the view shed in the front of the building.
Can I clarify, because it's very helpful to have you obviously attend and appreciate the expertise that comes with your wisdom. But is it in the definition, is the perspective supposed to be from the interior looking out?
It is.
And it's never considered to be the exterior looking in?
When the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation looks at it, they look at it from what you see, whether it's a viewpoint looking out, will it have an impact on the property? Okay? That's the way they look at it.
For development around the property, but not for the development of the property.
You know, it's a very good point
I
that
think
this
that's the debate
house,
that we're trying
that this
to
house
solve for.
is going to be preserved. You know, when historic preservation looks at things, they look at what's being preserved. Here, the house is being preserved, and at the request of the board, the carriage house and the, what I would call non-historic under any criteria, additional bays are proposed to be preserved. And if you look at seeker, they talk about projects that preserve the historic character and projects that don't preserve the historic structure. I mean, let's look back. You know, the Ingersoll House, that was relocated. It was preserved as a bank, right? Everybody agreed that was a historic property. There is nothing that says that you can't relocate historic structures in order for them to be preserved for the future. That was a major change. There was no environmental impact statement for that activity. And here, we're not proposing to do anything to the house or to the immediately visible surrounding of the house. If you look at the house, there's a lot of vegetation between the house and the side lawn, if you will, and the forsythias. I understand it's pretty. I'm not saying it's not pretty, but it's not historically significant.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for a precise definition of
Yeah, we can bring that back for you.
of what setting is. And does the Office of Parks and Recreation, can we put this in front of them to, do they offer opinions on?
I mean, we can always reach out to them, and they're a resource. And I think I put this in the addendum to the agenda statement, but that is one thing you can look at. But you also have, you know, a historic survey that was done by the town of our house.
I agree. I mean, look,
And you have
my
historic-
position is very
Yeah.
clear on this.
So I mean,
Both sides are in agreement
yeah.
that there's a historic nature to the properties on this lot, the house and the carriage house.
I've
And my-
said it's over 50 years old and therefore it's historic.
Right. And so my thing is, what does the precedents, rulings, law, whatever word you want to use, say about the lot itself?
Right, but I'm just saying
And
the
we've
state
heard
is
one-
not necessarily the defining factor in what the planning board needs to qualify as historic when you're looking at the comprehensive plan and you're looking at all of it.
No.
But
So
we
that I
can
know.
certainly reach out and see what.
Yeah. So I know from that side, in terms of what our purview is from the comprehensive plan and historic things. But I
It
just
is-
had a question as to, is it, you know,
It's
50
not,
feet around the house that's historic? Is it the complete vision you could see all the way to wherever, the CVS, that's considered historic? Where does it,
I can't imagine that.
it's got to have a boundary somewhere.
yeah, there really isn't a boundary. The real question is, what of the historic setting remains? And when you look at the original outline of the property, for instance, as a farm, and we've heard that it was a farm at one time, clearly that farm is long gone and there's been houses built on it. So there's no real significance to what is left around the house. It doesn't serve the house in any way, shape, or form. It's just lawn, like lawn at any other residential subdivision. And I just want to mention that the house is not listed on Chris, the state system.
It's a
It's
data
not
point
there.
Yeah, it is a data point there.
It is not listed as eligible on the
It is
state
not
or
listed as
national register.
ineligible. It's a data point on Chris.
It is not listed as eligible on the state register right now. That's
Right, it is listed as undetermined, as a data point in Chris as undetermined.
every house that's over 50 years old, and there's a lot right in proximity there, qualifies as historic. So
I think there's a major
I don't need-
distinction
That's
between a
not
house
true.
that's 50 years old and this house.
there are plenty of houses on Van Antwerp that look very similar to this house.
And I can promise you that we'll start treating them the same way.
So there's a couple clarifications.
And I don't think many of us were on the board when Ingersoll was happening either.
Well, boards are bound by precedent,
Right.
just saying.
So there's a difference between an older building and historic.
No, there's not actually.
No, there is. There's a definition because historic means there's contributing factors that would make that building different than another one, say identical to this a quarter mile away. This one had supervisors that lived there. It has a very rich history. Even in your letters, everybody on both sides have referred to this as a historic property, not an older building. And if you go, historic preservation is my background. So I understand this very, very clearly. Go through SHPO's website. You can read all about it. Sites do contribute to the buildings and buildings as historic properties. It's all contiguous. So the other thing is just a clarification on the carriage house. It wasn't a request to move it. I questioned the integrity of it,
Feasibility of it.
and as a last resort, the first plan was to tear it down.
Mhm.
And in my visual estimate, I haven't toured through it, but from what I saw from the streetscape and my walk around the property, it didn't look dilapidated. So that's why we questioned that if it had to be retained, could it be moved? It wasn't a mandatory request.
And if I may add, there were experts who we've taken a lot of feedback from over the years that indicated it really shouldn't be moved.
Yeah.
So that's going to weigh heavy on my decision in terms of what the likely end result or end game will be of historic preservation. In other words, your Ingersoll house analogy. Did we succeed in preserving the expectation of history with that project? We took a gamble. Apparently, most folks don't think it was preserved. To your point, it's a bank. So I'm not sure what the outcome will be if we allow that type of move to occur.
And the Ingersoll house has been stripped of everything.
Yeah, right.
It's bricks, a little bit of the roof left, and I mean, the windows are gone, the interior's gone.
No, the original part of it was what was preserved.
Yeah.
The
The brick,
stuff
the
that
brick
was,
shell.
the
That's it.
stuff, no, the stuff that was added onto it as a nursing home, which is what it was,
Right.
was the part that was not preserved. The rest of it was preserved. And it looks very nice.
So,
in
so
there.
Ms. Beckner, just so, although every board has a relationship with precedents, we also have a responsibility not to repeat mistakes.
As far as the relocation of the carriage house, it was certainly my client's impression that the board wanted to see the carriage house preserved. It would be helpful to have some guidance from the board as to whether you would prefer to see it torn down or relocated. My client who lives in the house believes that they can use it as a garage, but it's not ideal as a garage. So we proposed relocating it to preserve it in the hopes that the board would find that to be, more acceptable. If it doesn't find it more acceptable, by all means, let us know.
I think we have to just consider the possibility, though, that in either scenario, that carriage house would not be preserved in its original state.
Well, all we can say is that compared to moving other historic properties that have been removed, this should be much easier than that.
The other thing I'd just like to mention too is, let's say that somewhere down the road, the current or a future owner would like to pursue placing this parcel on the National Register. By moving that carriage house or by allowing any significant alterations to the character of this parcel, we would be, in effect, potentially disqualifying them from ever pursuing that.
Well, you would certainly not be disqualified from listing the house on the state or national register. Well, I don't know about the national. On the state register of historic places, I'm not sure the importance of the house rises to the level to the national register. Perhaps the state.
It does rise a little higher. I would love to consider my house, which exceeds 50 years old, on the same level of importance, but I think it's important to note that this is a 190-year-old house. And we have some records indicating that it's the 28th oldest homestead in the town.
And there are a lot of historic homes in the town of Niskayuna. If you drive around and you look, they're the same age, basically the same general configuration, the Dutch colonial. It's an attractive house. The question is there anything about that house that prevents the town planning board from approving two-lot subdivision that meets the bulk and other requirements and is faced on a different road and already has all the public sewer and water that have been put in place for residential uses? The question is, are those two houses any more impacting than the house across the street or the houses next to them that were just recently approved? And I would submit that they are not.
And it's those two houses that's in front of us that we have to make a decision on, not any of the other houses right now.
But the decision was made with respect to the other houses. I mean, the points I'm making are the same points that would be made. So I want to be upfront with you. There's a house across the street that was built within the last 5 years, I believe. There's 3 houses alongside it that were built. Is there anything about the setting that's left that's valuable?
Certainly. If you
No.
continue along Van Antwerp toward GE Research, there are several other homes that, in my estimation, exceed 100 years in age. Certainly, there's a character to that road that's not exactly the picture you paint, it being a road that also has a CVS located on it.
And you know that these houses will front on Hilltop. They will not front on Van Antwerp. That's another
That
difference.
is shown on the plan, yes.
Yeah. If you have any questions for Luigi about the drainage plan, he has redone that.
I don't think it's that significant.
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions about it. Has it been?
I mean, I could
Something that'll be
certainly touch on it. So originally, we did discuss it at the previous meeting where the lot on the corner of Hilltop and Van Antwerp, that's considered lot number 2 on the map. When we did our initial drainage analysis, we are proposing the rain garden in that corner of the lot there. After the meeting, there was a discussion about the existing 3 homes that were built that I wasn't a part of. But I am in the process with an updated drainage analysis that includes those 3 existing homes. And as you know, those 3 existing homes, the existing lot 1380 Van Antwerp, the home and the garage, and the proposed lot number 3, all drain to the low point of McGovern Drive. Our latest drainage analysis included all of that, the impervious surfaces that are built today, the removal of the trees and whatnot. And what I've found is that if we put another rain garden on lot number 3, we'll reduce the amount of peak discharge rates that previously went to that low point of McGovern Drive. So I feel that because I wasn't part of that previous subdivision and I'm now coming in, that we shouldn't have to do it, but we can certainly propose or provide additional stormwater measures on this new 3-lot subdivision to overcompensate the drainage that goes to the low point of McGovern Drive.
Where, do you have a proposed or any idea where you might locate that rain garden, Luigi?
On 3.
Yeah, so it would be right along the rear property line of lot number 3.
So sort of where the carriage house is currently located?
Yes. Yep. Because we figured if we're going to relocate the carriage house, there's going to be some disturbance in that area. And, after the carriage house is moved, we would then build a little practice. And that bioretention is literally a 1-foot depression, hardly noticeable in the backyard. And, being that the lot 3 is a deep lot, there'll still be plenty of room from the back proposed home to this rain garden practice for any future decks or pools or anything like that. So. Drainage.
How would the drainage of lot number 1 be impacted with raising the grade up in the area on the southern property line?
So that actually swales to around the backside of the proposed relocated garage. There's a natural drainage course between, 2459 Hilltop and lot number 3. It's a natural drainage course. Actually, the town of Niskayuna's catch basins pipe out towards that and drain onto these 2 properties. And it's a natural drainage course that then goes under an existing culvert pipe off of McGovern for the house on that's located at 2456 McGovern. The new home that they built there, the driveway has a culvert underneath to allow that natural drainage course to reach the low point of McGovern. So everything will still continue to drain into that area. What we're proposing with this rain garden is to slow it down, get it within this bioretention with, some plantings that will absorb it and slow the peak discharge rates down so that it doesn't overcome the existing drainage feature at the low point of McGovern Drive.
And that's all surface, right?
Yes.
Where it discharges across the surface and then down the hill there, kind of.
Correct. Yep.
So where does the town drain into that property?
If you look on my map, Hilltop Road between lot 3 and the existing home to the east.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the contours, right, you're starting at top, there's catch basins there, and that drains in that direction.
These catch basins right here. So it's coming through.
So again, Hilltop elevation's roughly 454, and that all drains down to the low point of McGovern Drive, which is at elevation 434.
And if the current garage were to be relocated, there's like a depression in that area, right? So would that have to be built up or in order to?
Yeah, we would certainly have to build a foundation to support that structure. You'd have exposed foundation because obviously we want the proposed driveway to shed away the stormwater to go away from the garage finished floor. And the way I see it is the water will just naturally go around the garage.
To that current.
To the existing drainage swale along the back, yes.
So anything in front of the garage is ideally moving toward Van Antwerp. Anything behind, I'm sorry, the carriage house, that's moving into the swale between the parcels.
That's correct.
But in your estimation, that there's sufficient capacity in that swale and the culvert to accommodate any additional runoff?
Yes. Yeah, we're proposing the rain garden practice, which will handle the start of the stormwater runoff from the proposed lot 3 in the proposed pavement and relocated garage. And then it will slowly discharge towards the existing drainage ditch like we're talking about underneath the culvert pipe. Yeah, we're not changing any direction of drainage as you see out there today. We're simply slowing it down.
Anything else to add?
I think from the perspective of engineering the stormwater, I think what Luigi's presented, and we'll certainly take a look at that that drainage plan. I think that's kind of, we've seen enough at the sketch plan stage.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, bottom line is, it's thoughtful that, we're trying to save the carriage house, but not at the current location, of course. It's part of the proposed subdivision. We'll have to send it on to the Conservation Advisory Council. That's my position. They'll update, they did give us, written opinion, right? Positive declaration, comments about, several factors, including the drainage and historic value. We'll send it back to them so they can update that. We have a revised sketch plan. I mean, you're kicking this around for a while, and I think we need to get somewhere with it, and bring it to some kind of closure. I know that, it's expensive to keep, doing engineering. I think we just need to make a decision. So I would propose, and Patrick, that if we can get the Conservation Advisory Council to give us a written update, and we get that soon enough that we have another resolution prepared for the next meeting and try to act on this one way or another.
May 13th.
Yeah.
Do you want the revised drainage plan or not?
I thought it's been prepared, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have it. It's,
Yeah, we might as well.
It's sitting on my desk
But
for
because
review. I
we've
could
got
have
it
emailed it, but
As
I didn't.
part
get
of
a
our
chance.
review here,
say,
but
why would
it's no good anymore with the proposed relocation of the carriage house.
And with sketch plan, how far do we usually go with drainage anyway? We bring up concerns and maybe they start the engineering, but, we are going quite a ways for sketch plan for.
Right, but if it's done already, then.
But if it's done already, we'll take it, sure.
Yeah, we went ahead and prepared it and hope that we can resolve this and move it forward.
Yeah, I see no reason why we can't have a resolution for next meeting.
Yeah, we'll make it tentative in case, something happens with the Conservation Advisory Council, or they get, the chance for the town engineering to take a look at your drainage analysis, and nothing significant comes up, at least we'll act on this. We got to, it's been, how many meetings we've been talking about this, but we need to at least come to some kind of closure, I think, for everybody.
Can I just make a clarification to the applicant's counsel, making the statement that it's 2 homes on Hilltop? It technically, the way the town code is, because the house number or lot 2 is on Van Antwerp and Hilltop, it'll technically be a new home on Van Antwerp as well, because it'll be 2 front row or front lots.
I merely meant the driveways on.
Yeah, driveways as proposed are both facing Hilltop Road.
I just wanted to make sure it was clarified.
And I think the house is facing Hilltop too, right?
The house is facing Hilltop as well. Yep.
Right, but it will still have the side yard, which will be the.
You'll have 2 front
It's like a
yards.
front yard.
Correct.
You'll have 2
Yeah,
front
corner
yards,
lot.
right, which could cause, obviously limitations for the, future homeowner if this were to go through, where they could place things and so on and so forth. Fences, so on and so forth, because corner lots, a lot of people like corner lots, but there's issues with corner lots also. All All right, any questions from you guys at all or from the board with the applicant? That was a good discussion, more than we expected tonight, but I'm glad you all showed up tonight. Okay. All right, Conservation Advisory Council meeting, again, remind me the date, Laura?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 7 o'clock also?
Yeah, May 1st,
Okay,
7 o'clock.
you make sure Mr. Lisi knows about that, all right? Okay. All right, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. It's the same thing.
All right, where are we? Okay, that's it for discussion items. Again, thank you, everybody. Laura, do you have anything under reports for us tonight?
I do not.
Nothing? Okay, that's good. And we'll go commission business. Mr. Ross, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Mr. DiRapino?
Yes, there was an article in the Gazette. Town of Alplos has done a evaluation of their historic properties, and they came up with a report. They wanted to try to get it adopted into their comprehensive plan, but theirs was updated in 2017. I thought maybe it'd be neat if we could reach out to them and get a copy,
Okay.
just to see what they're looking at. A lot of turn-of-the-century homes clustered together. We've driven through there, so
Yeah,
that'll be interesting.
great.
Our mixed-use zoning committee is meeting this week to take a look at getting started with what we're going to be evaluating. One of the things I did was I did go to Ellsworth Commons last week and took a bunch of pictures for planning perspective of the courtyard, its relationship to Route 9, walkability, access. I'll have them for the meeting on Wednesday.
And that's Wednesday, is that in the Schaefer room at? we have a time?
Yeah, at 8:30.
8:30
That's
AM?
a.m.
AM. You never know.
Ellsworth is in
It's one in Malta.
Malta.
Yeah, around Route
We can
9.
You might be able to.
I believe Jeffrey used
Check it
a
out.
couple snippets of it in his initial presentation.
Yep.
He had it a while back. And then
The committee members was the gentleman from Schenectady that, is he gonna,
Mr.
Mhm, He's
Chiesa.
coming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
great. That's it. Mr. McPartlin,
None for me.
Mr. Khan,
I think.
you have tennis?
Really quickly, Laura, do you know of any issues coming up in terms of site assembly happening with the rear of 2147 Eastern Parkway? There's a couple of unoccupied buildings that are currently front on Union Street. So there's the 2147 backs up to an old salon, a hair salon.
Yeah, I know that. No, I don't know of any.
Okay.
There's nothing been formally submitted. I know when we were originally looking at Eastern Parkway that there was some thought of combining all of those
Yeah.
new like through, but I haven't seen anything for that. I haven't heard any rumblings on that in a while.
Thank you.
Mr.
Nothing.
I have nothing. I have one question. Was Smashburger's gone now, right?
Smashburger did
You
go.
hear anything about that at all?
No, no,
No,
not really.
no, it was interesting because it was a Thai bistro. It was
But she's actually got her sign up for Karma Bistro.
For the
so I
other-
think she's going to be opening.
for the other place
Yeah.
that we approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the pokey place.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, is
And
that?
rolled ice cream,
Yeah,
and mixed
roll,
drinks.
yeah. That's in the old Starbucks? Yeah.
I know.
No,
No,
it's
it's
by the-
next door.
next
It's
door.
in the old TCBY.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
it.
right.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
old Starbucks is still empty. And then the place next to Starbucks is ShopRite from home. So, but the old Starbucks, I think, is a tough spot because it's very tucked into that corner.
I'm
Yes.
amazed the smash burger did not work.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I know.
unbelievable.
Big.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, it's not for lack of my family going.
Yeah, me
Because
neither.
we were there like at least once a week.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
always
that.
looked
I
like
did
there
go
was
in a couple
decent-
times. There was nobody in there. I mean, there literally was no one. in
There was a reason why there was the last time that I went in there.
I mean, my family would eat there once a week. My dad got a Smash Pass, and so like he could get $1. He was getting like full meals for like $2 or something like that.
Are they
would
gonna
eat-
honor his
He would eat there every
Smash
single
Pass
day.
members?
Like that did not go out of
You go to
business for
Wolf
lack
Road?
of Robertsons going to Smash Burger.
All right, I have no other comments at all, so a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Khan, motion to adjourn, and I'll second that. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.